Um, I know most of you, but if you don't know me, my name is Jabbar Al-Obaidi. I'm professor of media studies and communication technologies. I'm also the academic director of global programs. And as you know, the global program is part of the Munich Institute for Global Engagement. And the Munich Institute for Global Engagement is really the hub for all international activities for the last, I would say, 10 years. And in the Munich, we really made this lot publicity and marketing as our dear helper, administrative assistant, Susan Williams. I know she does not like me to say that a lot the last 3 days, but I have to mention that and acknowledge her help. And also our distinguished writer, Sasha Link. She is a professor and a PhD students, but at the same time, she is really great writer. She always take pictures and photos and write about our events. Today is actually the fourth day of our celebration of the International Education Week. If you don't know about the International Education Week in the United States, it was originated in 2000 when President Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. And delightfully, the State Department and also the U.S. Department of Education sustained this effort. And so every November, we celebrate this event from November 16th through November 20th. And tomorrow we're gonna, you are welcome to join us. We're gonna have the open house for the Munich Institute for Global Engagement at Bridgewater State University. If you have a few minutes to join us and see what we're doing, you are welcome to do that. And so today is we spoke about different areas in terms of the international education. And now we come really to the real power, in my view, which is, the habiter of us, our sisters, they are the educators, they are actually the creative and the maintainers, they are actually making us more wise. So appreciate this distinguished speakers that we were able to put together for you this morning. Also, I would like to thank the support of my dear friend, Dr. Wenkai Tu, who is the Assistant Provost for Global Engagement, is always behind this nice effort. And of course, students, if they are there, my dear faculty, librarians, staff, everyone, you are welcome to this event. And thank you, Dr. Laura McDonald, because she is really also the one that she thought of this thoroughly. And also thank you to our supporters, especially the U.S. Department of Education, because we got the small grant. And thanks to the effort of Dr. Mediaro and his team to get that for us, the Office of Global Engagement, and also the MENA, which is Middle East and North Africa Studies Program. So all those our supporters, we thank them very much, and also the African Studies, because we have a very rigorous program in African Studies, and also they support this event. With that, I would like to send it to my friend Laura.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura McAlinden. I'm chair of the philosophy department at Bridgewater, and I'm really pleased to be helping to moderate this event. As we all know, women in higher education are absolutely critical to everything in the world. The impact that women have in higher ed, the continuing and growing impact that women have We are changing the world, all of us together, with the help of every one of us working together. So I am pleased that we have our speakers joining us today from around the world. We are starting with opening remarks with Dr. Lisa Bem. She is the Dean of Graduate Studies at Bridgewater State University. So welcome, Lisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Jabbar and Laura for the opportunity to speak today. I was pleased to do that. International Education Week is the foremost opportunity to celebrate the advantages of international education and exchange programs. Today, we gather together virtually to celebrate. BSU considers international study in both the semester and the short-term programs as a very important part of our mission. International experiences are enriching beyond measure. We live in a global world, and we gain cultural competency and assurance in working across cultures, and when we study abroad and when we have events like this. And working in this way is a key job skill, not to mention personally enriching. Bridgewater State University is situated in a coastal location, and thus the need to consider global connections is geographically obvious to us in a daily way. Our local community, of course, contains immigrants and the descendants of immigrants, and this greatly enriches the fabric of our towns and cities. Today, we focus on the unique role of women. Women's role in education, international experiences, and perspectives. When a woman is educated, she and a whole network of others benefit. In the very early United States, when women had few rights in this nation, they were still given an important role, and that is the role of Republican motherhood. Educated women raise educated children, and it was especially important to people at this time, educated sons, and thus educating women became imperative. To have a strong community, we need educated women. Education of citizens is essential for good government around the world. We allow women more rights in this nation now, thank goodness, but this was a fundamental right and a right that was recognized very early in our country, the right for women to be educated. We celebrate women's education around the world today, and I'm so pleased to welcome all our guests.
Okay, thank you so much for those remarks, Lisa. So first up, we have Dr. Shahana Rasool. She comes to us from South Africa at the University of Johannesburg. Dr. Rasool.
Very good morning to everybody, and afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world. Can you hear me clearly, Laura?
Yes.
Okay. Do you mind putting on my PowerPoint as well?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much to everyone who has joined us today. I'm really honored to be part of this panel with the other esteemed women. And thank you also to Dr. Al-Ubaidi for inviting me. And of course, to all of those who have been involved in organizing all of these engaging sessions. Thank you very much. So for me, as a feminist, one of the core tenets that I ascribe to is that the personal is political. You can put slide 2, please. So in thinking about women's role in education, I will talk about my personal experiences in academia, but also talk about the role that young women have played in tertiary education settings in South Africa. But the topic in itself is quite wide. The role of women in academia is vast and could vary. Different women from different spaces may see themselves as playing divergent roles. Some may be more keen to play administrative roles, others curriculum and development, yet others may be more interested in leading research teams and projects, while some maybe take up formal leadership roles in the higher echelons of academia. Fortunately, academia is very flexible with a range of options and career choices. And although most of us have to be involved in most of these aspects, we can choose to focus on one area or another. But all of us, no matter where we are located, are playing leadership of some sort. So even the first year student who has just started university, especially in a context like South Africa, where many have never been to university, they have an important leadership role to play in communities and serve as a role model for other young people in the communities they come from. Can I have the next slide, please? In fact, at the University of Johannesburg, there are many students who are first generation in their family to be in university. So they are the first person in their family to go to university. This is a result of the legacy of apartheid, that many people didn't have access to university. So often at our graduations, you witness the extreme excitement of families who may actually only be visiting the university context for the first time. So these young women have a big responsibility with regards to doing well at university, which is often an alien environment, having come from a rural area or very poor families, and now having to succeed in very harsh foreign environment like a university environment can sometimes be. Of course, this in itself comes with various challenges, and I'll talk to that a bit more later. I will also talk a little bit more later about the role of students in leadership, which is the first theme of my paper. As students in South Africa have played some very powerful roles in challenging unequal systems, which is related to the second key area I will address in this paper, which is activism. For now, coming back to the diversity of roles we play as women in education and academia, the one that I would hope that women in education would pursue, irrespective of the area in which we choose to lead in and excel, and that is concerned with building a sisterhood. This is the theme that I first want to talk about. So for me, the number one priority as women in education is how do we build a sisterhood, not just in academia, but also across society, with civil society, government, and business. Because if we don't build this sisterhood, and if we don't build bridges across the differences, we have no basis for a feminist politics. So how do we address gender inequality if we don't find ways to unite, sometimes on issues that are relevant to our own lives, and sometimes in solidarity with sisters to address the pains that they may be facing? So I'll provide 4 examples of how we can build solidarity. First, how do we as academic women support and strengthen the rights of other women workers in the university setting? So cleaners, admin, and other insecure non-academic workers amongst us. Their access to job security, good working conditions that provide them with a level of dignity, access to benefits, etc., are quite important for us to work on with them. So this notion of solidarity is important. It is critical to find ways to build solidarity and support and strengthen each other. So the second example, we support sisters who are in leadership positions. Leadership positions from women in institutions can be very lonely. And having a support base of colleagues is critical to enable the work of women leaders and to direct them on the issues they need to take up on our behalf. If we don't communicate the pains and difficulties we experience as women in education to our leadership, how do they drive our agenda? A third way to build solidarity and sisterhood is through promoting the work of fellow sisters. No, sorry, it was still on the previous slide, not this, the previous one, yeah. Thank you. A third way to build solidarity and sisterhood is to promoting the work of fellow sisters. We need to be conscious of whose work we read, teach, and promote. Who do we quote? Reading, teaching, and quoting the work of fellow sisters is critical to their flourishing in academia. Fourth, we could also be building this sisterhood by mentoring sisters who are trying to work their way through the academic minefield. Mentoring is one of the most powerful ways to engage the growth of other women in academia by enabling their success and making sure they don't have to go through unnecessary pains, obstacles, and breaking through glass ceilings we may have already done. This idea that we went through it, so it's part of the course, needs to be relooked at. What are the things that everyone really has to go through? And what are the things that are unnecessary obstacles? How can we clear the path for those who come after us? What advice, information, knowledge, experience can we share so that they don't have to walk over unnecessary thorns that we could have removed from their past? I know for me in my career, there were significant women who enabled my path. You can move to the next slide. I think the slides got swapped somehow. So we're moving not to this one, the next one. The one after, please. Thank you, that one, yeah. So there were significant women who enabled my path, not by creating shortcuts, but by providing support and guidance. So I came into academia purely by chance. I did not plan to become an academic at all. I had just returned to South Africa from Australia, where I was working in the NGO sector, and I started doing mostly consulting. A friend of mine who I studied work and was lecturing at one of the universities in South Africa just needed to go on maternity leave and approached me to assist her with her teaching. That's really how my career in academia started. After that, I got headhunted by the head of department of another university, who is one of the foremost thinkers on social development in South Africa and in the world. That's Prof. Leila Patel. And so, in essence, my career path and how I came into academia was strongly influenced by these two women. One, a very good friend of mine, a peer, a trusted sister, who has now passed on. But her legacy and impact on my thinking and development as an academic and a person is unsurmountable. Then Professor Patel, who not only recruited me into academia, but unofficially supervised my doctorate with no pay or recognition. I don't think I would have had a PhD today if it was not for her. So her mark is on my PhD as well as subsequent publications. I mention these two women specifically because they were critical to my early journey in academia. But there are many others I can think of that have been important in my academic career subsequently, particularly through my 3-year stint as head of department of social work. There are many women allies who supported me in both getting the appointment and surviving it. I am grateful today for each of these women who played a role in my work and life, in caring me, supporting me, teaching, listening to me, guiding me, mentoring me, and being there for me in various ways. I truly believe if we build a strong sisterhood, we can dismantle patriarchy. So, as I said before, the first important role of women in education that I have spoken about is building a resilient sisterhood and solidarity. The second role of women in education for me that I'd like to speak of is activism. The next slide, please. How do we as women in education activate for gender equality, but also social transformation of our universities, the content of our education, structural reform, etc., both in education and society more generally? So on the one hand, we need to be involved in ensuring that our universities have policies, procedures, systems, and processes in place that are gender sensitive and that deals with issues like sexual harassment and other forms of gender-based violence, both on and off campus. For accounting for the work, the care work that women play, because even till today, in most parts of the world, women are still largely responsible for care work. For ensuring that there is a level playing field, particularly in promotions and other aspects of the university, entrance, etc. So these are some of the gender-specific issues that we can play an important role in facilitating through various committees and in our leadership roles and positions. But it is important that we address issues of inequality and transformation more broadly, which speak to issues of systemic discrimination. And to talk to that, I would like to show you a little bit about the work of some young women leaders in the South African context. in particular with regards to their role in the Rhodes Must Fall and Fees Must Fall movements. Next slide, please. For those who know anything about South Africa, in October 2015, students declared that the ongoing dehumanization structures of coloniality and extreme race-based socioeconomic inequality in South Africa continued to exclude and marginalize the majority of students. Students initiated and led the Rhodes and Fees Must Fall movements to highlight the need to challenge apartheid continuities, which are still evident in the current material realities of South Africa. South Africa in many ways remains racially stratified, unequal, gender unequal as well. Students saw the need to mobilize against the way in which these structural inequalities played out in higher education. Students made demands for eradicating economic, class, and cultural barriers of access to education. And through their efforts to challenge the nature of the South African education system, which perpetuates the hegemony of Western-centric knowledge, its paradigms and epistemology, they forced institutions and educators to look at the education system in South Africa and to find ways to make it more relevant and appropriate to the African context. So I would like to introduce you to two of the then Black women leaders of the Students' Fees Must Fall movement. That's the next slide, please. The first is Nompendulo Makatswa, which is on the left, and the second is Shaira Kala. They were both presidents of the Student Representatives Council at the university where I did my undergraduate degree in social work. That is the University of Witwatersrand. During the student protests, Shaira, the one on the right, was shot 13 times in her back with rubber bullets by the police. I would like to now share a speech she made post the incident. I'm going to see if I can maybe open it on my side because I don't want to show the entire speech. Give me a moment, please. Sorry, it's not going to the right link. Let me try again. Now share screen. Okay, I think you would have to stop sharing screen for me to share screen, right? There we go. No. All right. Are you able to see?
Oh, yes.
Yes, perfect.
So you need to share the audio as well.
Okay, how do I do that? Try full screen. Let's try again. Can you hear now? Yes?
No.
No.
You can read it if you have that text. You can read the text. It's better.
No, just to.
Yeah. So.
I'm just gonna try and see if. It's okay. I'm just gonna stop it. Okay, it's fine. I'll just continue. I think that it was just really to give you a sense of the role that these women have played and how strong and powerful they were in their leadership positions. So I don't know if you can share it on your side, but it's fine. If you can just share my PowerPoint again, please. Can you hear me? Jabbar? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, so it is also important to recognize that actually the recognition of these women as leaders and highlighting their work did not come without struggle. They had to create a WhatsApp group called Umbokodo Leads. Next slide, please. Umbokodo means rock, which comes from the saying developed during the famous march under apartheid by women activists in 1956 to protest against women's movements being restricted under apartheid with pass laws. The slogan that emerged at that time and that still remains powerful in the current context. In English, it says, "You strike a woman, you strike a rock." So this was the saying that emerged many years ago. And when we watch these young women, we still see how this slogan holds true to them. And this WhatsApp group included women student leaders and the few Black academics that do exist in South Africa. And this group was essential in supporting Makatswa and Kala and later other women leaders in the movement. So this hashtag, Mbokodo Leads, was a way to ensure that the role of these Black women leaders were recognized. So these powerful young women led the campaign for increasing—
1 minute.
Thank you. For increasing access to poor students in South Africa. And actually Black women in particular are usually the poorest. And so it was wonderful to see these Black women at the forefront of this movement. The Fees Must Fall movement was not just about free education, but they were challenging the coloniality of knowledge that still embeds many of the higher education institutions in South Africa. This movement and the leadership by these students actually led and inspired us as educators to critically rethink our curriculum and how we teach. As a result, as part of my work when I was head of Department of Social Work, I worked with my team to develop a participatory action approach to rethink and decolonize social work education. There isn't much time to talk about that process now. For now, I'll just share the diagram. If you can move to the next slide. The one after, that was the process, and the one after. And this slide this work was a result of the engagements with my team in social work. And we looked at all of these domains of engagement to look at how we can work at decoloniality. I'm not going to go through that now because we don't have the time. And if you go to the next slide, it talks about the principles that came about from those engagements at different levels. So the different levels of working with learners, working with educators, working on pedagogy, working on theorists. And these are the 7 principles that we came up with, which now embeds the entire social work curriculum. These are power and oppression, foregrounding of structural issues, the intersection of race, class, and gender, Africa as the center, Ubuntu, recognition of indigenous knowledges, critical conscientization, and voice. Again, I cannot talk through these, but we've published an article on these themes, which is available in the Journal of Progressive Human Services. Next slide, please. So we don't have time to go into the themes, but another time. But the point about this is that these protests by these young people, in which young Black women played a leading role, next slide. These young Black women brought the higher education, with the other students, of course, brought the higher education system in South Africa to its knees and led to the questioning of how we teach, what we teach, etc. And so this was not just a ripple in the pond, but the wave of a tsunami that led to very important conversations and transformations in South African higher education.
Right.
Message being, yeah, my last sentence.
Thank you. Yeah, because we have, certain time.
Okay, sorry. The message being that all of you young women and all of us have a role to play in leading important discussions and movements and activating for change to achieve social transformation and gender equality. For me, a huge part of this is building a resilient sisterhood, and this provides the foundation, the pillars of strength and inspiration as we struggle with systems of oppression. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Laura, next speaker,
Yes.
Dr. Thomas has a problem, so we want to go to the third speaker.
Okay then.
Yeah, she is
Yes.
rebooting.
So it's Dr. Berthana Zaid. She was going to present with Dr. Nahida Mahiga. I'm sorry, Dr. Nahida Mak, but Dr. Nahida is ill with the COVID, unfortunately. We wish her all success for good health in the future. But Dr. Berthana, you will be giving the presentation. She is from Tafila Technical University in Jordan, and I have the pleasure of introducing my very good friend. Thank you, Dr. Berthana, for joining us today.
And I want to add to that that we are very proud of our partnership with Tafila Technical University since 2006. And so many of our students and faculty and administrators, they visit their beautiful campus. Is located south of Amman. It's about 3 hours driving. So you are all invited to enjoy sometimes in the future to visit that campus and work with our faculty and students. Thank you, Laura.
Go ahead, Dr. Berthana. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you very much indeed, Dr. Laura and Dr. Jabbar. As Laura mentioned, I'm Berthana Ziad, Assistant Professor of Human Resource Management. I'm not sure, do you hear me clear, guys, please? Yeah. And I'm proud to say that I'm one of Bridgewater State University alumni. To be honest with you, I'm really grateful for you guys, for your invitation to join you today. So thank you very much indeed. I'm not sure, Dr. Laura, can I share my presentation, please?
Yes, you can. You have the power to do that. You have permission to do that.
Can you see my presentation, guys? Hello?
Yes. Aina? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So as Laura mentioned, I should present this work with my colleague from Yarmouk University, Dr. Nahida, but unfortunately she cannot make it because she has COVID-19, and hopefully she will get better soon. In fact, on my presentation, I will talk a little bit about the facts about women in education in general. And after that, I will move to focus on women in higher education in Jordan and what are the challenges facing women in higher education. And I will end up with conclusion and some recommendations. First of all, with regard to the women in education, the Jordanian society has witnessed major and remarkable development in all of the economic, social, and political fields, which all have a direct and indirect impact in women in Jordan in general. The second fact, it's about female education in Jordan have been considered as the end of the 19th century and early 20th century as unnecessary, a threat and inappropriate. While male students continue to high school level, their sister girls were forced to stay at home. Number 3, it talks about the amount of budget, or the part of budget where Jordanian government spent yearly, in education. Here I'm talking about in general, about education, higher education and education in general. Since 1980, the literacy rate in Jordan has increased from 69.2% to 91% in 2019, with a female literacy rate of 97.83. And I'm proud to say that Jordan has the highest female literacy rate in the Middle East. By the way, here when we are talking about the rate, about the female literacy rate in Jordan, it's compared with the global rate, global rate. What we got here, it is very high, because if I'm not wrong, I'll just Google it today. The global female rate, it's I think around 90% only. Also, according to the Ministry of Higher Education for the year 2015-2016, where the percentage of female who have attended the professorship degree is only 7% of the total. Well, actually, this is very low percent compared with the number of the women they hold PhD or they work in academia. According to the recent study that prepared on the subject of career development for Jordanian academics for the year 2015 and 16, it was found that only 2 of the 46 academics links to the position of vice president at the university. And out of 300 faculties deans, there are only 27 women who have reached this position. Again, this is very low. I can say it's very low percentage. Since 1962 to the present day, only one woman, Professor Al-Ma'aita, managed to reach the presidency of the university, and that was for only one year. Dr. Nsour, she is a specialist in human resources from the Hashemite University, believes that there is talk about a global problem, but she says that it takes a more complex form in Arab societies, referring to the suffering of women in the development of the academic field. Here, guys, if you can see in this table, and by the way, this is the only or the recent update I found in, or the last update the last report I found in the Ministry of Higher Education website. And this presents the percentage of the female academic staff at the university. If you can see, is from 2000 until 2015. This table shows, guys, there's increasing of the number of female academic in all, if I would like to say, in all the levels, for a professor, associate professor, assistant professor, instructor, and lecturer. And by the way, regarding to the instructor in Jordan, when you hold master degree and you can teach, and with regard to the lecturer, you have undergraduate degree, but you as well can teach at the university. According to to a report mentioned by the Jordanian Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research, the percentage of women participating in the academic process in Jordan reached 24% for the academic year 2013, 2014, and 2015. And this percentage is higher than the rate of Jordanian women's participation in public work globally, according to the World Bank. Here, as well, this table, guys, shows the percentage and number of administrative staff. And here it is divided by by gender. Again, guys, if we look about here, about the percentage of female in 2015. Okay, I do understand the number is increasing, but comparing with the male, it is still low. Especially if we are talking about the number of female students that enroll to the university. The percentage of female, it is higher more than male students. Despite the improvement in the female proportion in the administration during the 15-year period, it is still very low when compared to female studying at university. This slide talk, guys, about the female academic, the one they already hold PhD. We noticed that 53.3% of them came from 4 fields: educational science, arts, commerce and business, and pharmacy. Which means here that we need actually to encourage our female student or our female in general to study in, for example, medicine, engineering, because I think when I'm talking here about education, here in Jordan, they prefer, for example, they prefer their daughters to go to schools and work in the schools because there's no any kind of interaction with males. So I think that's why educational field have, I think, the highest percentage. There are actually a couple of challenges when we are talking about women in education and in higher education. First of all, the results indicate female academics as facing many interconnected and interrelated barriers embodied in cultural, social, economic, and legal factors. This one of the most recent study about women in higher education with more focus on HR practices. According to UNSUR 2017, the influence of culture on women's career development and various HR practices is well established in HR literature. But the findings, 3 minutes. Okay, but the findings of this study present a further pressure of culture. In addition, HR policies and other regulations were found to be formulated in the curriculum of national culture. Okay, I'm gonna say just 1 or 2 of these. For example, in higher education institution, the decision maker prefer those who hold their PhD from Western university. And when we start thinking about the culture, about the rules, about the financial support, so I think it is very hard and difficult for the women to travel to hold their degree from Western country. Also, access to senior positions such as university president requires her to reach the position of vice president. And usually the academics do not reach this position because they don't trust them. So as a result, it is not easy for her to get this position. Sorry. What else? Okay. It is possible for the girl to obtain a master's degree, but the number of those developing and study a doctorate is little. For example, if we are talking about online degree, unfortunately, it's not accepted in Jordan. So she needs to travel to do her PhD. Number two, unfortunately, in Jordan, we do not have a PhD program in all the majors. Number three, this is, I think, the most important point. Doing a PhD or study master nowadays in Jordan, it costs a lot of money. It's very expensive. So in this case, she needs financial support. Here, to be honest with you, I'm sorry to say, there are high percentage of families, they don't want to invest on their daughters in doing their PhD or master, because what they think about it, at the end of the day, she will get married. So what's the point? What else? Okay. The economic factors plays a major role in the development of women in the academic field, because hold a postgraduate degree in Jordan is expensive, as I mentioned before. Also, this is a very important point, that Arab women, they actually, I think all the women across the world, they play multi-roles. So if you think about it, if she's married, she has a responsibility as wife, as mother, as daughter. So if she would like to write her priorities, I don't think to do her PhD or master, it's gonna be on the top of her hierarchy, if you would like to say. And as a conclusion, becoming aware of how gender stereotypes influence higher educational choices and behaviors can be useful to avoid some common pitfalls that may have large consequences in the early stages of a women's career. Future studies needed to expand throughout the public and private university and other sectors in order to gain more insight and solve job discrimination among female. This is my last slide, and it is just a recommendation. I really would like to thank you again, guys, about your invitation, because your invitation just opened my eyes that we really in Jordan have lack of information about, for example, women in education and women and leadership. So I think, actually I decided to start my research to write a paper about this, because I think this is one of the hot topic here. So also, unfortunately, when I prepared this presentation, I noticed that we do not have a good database. So where we can, for example, as a resources, if we would like to do research. So my recommendation to design a database containing the most important communication networks with researchers in various universities and centers and ways to communicate with them. Well, the last one, Jordan badly need a database on academics in Jordan that includes their specialists and scientific and achievement and contribution to monitoring gender differences in supporting scientific research for academics. This is a couple of the studies. I think the most recent study or paper research, it was in 2018. Thank you very much indeed for your attention. And if you have any suggestion or comment, I think we need to wait until the end.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Very, very nice presentation. Thank you, Badina. Okay, so next up is Stop, yeah, you could stop sharing your screen.
And
Okay.
and Laura, through you, please, I just would like to recognize, I know we always take advantage of this international forum. So I would like to recognize Dr. Rand Hamoud. She is actually the officer and the director of public relations at Duhok University in Iraq. And as you know, Duhok University and Bridgewater State University enjoy partnership. We hosted Dr. Hamoudi before with the 10 deans. So I hope this also will re-engage us despite the fact that we have pandemic. Welcome, Dr. Rand Hamoudi. I send it to you back to my friend, Laura.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Dr. Sarah Thomas from Bridgewater State University. Sarah, are you ready to, do you have your technology? Are you good?
Sure, I can share, right? I'm a co-host. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Okay, let's see.
Present, yeah, that's it.
Having technical difficulties today. Sorry, I had to drop off before.
It's okay.
Okay. All right, can everyone see this? You can hear me? Okay. Thank you all so much. My name is Sarah Thomas. I'm a professor of education at Bridgewater State University. And I approached this a little differently. I approached it with kind of women's roles in education in K through 12 education. And I wanted to focus on where we began in education and where we are right now, as it applies a lot to what I'm teaching at the moment. I also wanted to mention that I find it fascinating what's happening in other parts of the world, and I just think it's really interesting. It's a great time to share knowledge, so I do definitely appreciate that. So I said it's not just home economics, and the reason I said that is I'm not a historian of education, but I said that because when I was doing some research for this, I found this quotation. I thought it was really funny. It was from Littleton, Massachusetts in 1849, and they were recruiting teachers for the schools. And it said, God seems to have made women particularly suited to guide and develop the infant mind, and it seems very poor policy to pay a man $20 or $22 a month for teaching children the ABCs when a female could do the work more successfully at 1/3 of the price. I wanted to include that because that's still an issue, what teachers are paid, and primarily women are the teachers, most of the teachers in the United States, and I will talk a little bit about that. I also wanted to include that because at the moment I'm teaching an Introduction to Education course at Bridgewater, and one of the questions I ask my students at the beginning of the semester is, why do you want to become a teacher? And many of them say that they want to start teaching primarily because they like the hours, and there's a lot of the female students, and we talk about that. But I think it's interesting that this idea that the hours and the value placed on it, students today are still thinking that might be something that would work well for them. I also find it interesting that we have a general sense that women are better in the classroom because of our personalities and who we are, which I don't always agree with, but I think that even back then in 1849, they were talking about that. I wanted to just talk a little bit about U.S. schools way back when. We started with our dame schools where women primarily were teaching in the schools, and then we had female seminary schools, which is, some of you might be familiar with Catherine Beecher, and basically she was a school teacher, and she co-founded the Hartford Female Seminary, and the purpose of that school was to train women to be mothers and to be teachers. Then we had the common schools, private schools, and tutors. One thing that's interesting to know is today we think, oh, everyone can go to school, but with the colonies, we weren't really, schooling wasn't available for everyone. It wasn't, families didn't think it was appropriate to spend the money to send their students, their daughters to school to get school. And it was considered really valuable for women if they were able to go to school. So they pretty much, and when they did go to school, they actually were going to school not learning what the what the boys were learning, but they were considered the subjects like Latin and the sciences and geography and astronomy was focused mostly for the boys, whereas for the girls were learning for their lives as a mother. So, everyone was taught reading, writing, and arithmetic, but then girls were taught, how to keep a good home, things like that. I thought that was pretty fascinating. One thing that I did find out was that girls were sent to schools, and then at some schools actually started including girls in their common schools that only served boys. And I thought it was funny that Horace Mann, that we know at Bridgewater State University, he called it smuggling in the girls. So smuggling the girls into the schools in a way, because parents knew that it was important for their daughters to get some education. And that is something I think that we should know that, we weren't always afforded that opportunity. One thing in the United States that's has had a huge impact on the roles of women in education was the passage of Title IX. And Title IX really changed the trajectory of education for girls in the United States. With Title IX, women were able to earn more degrees. In 1972, women just earned 7% of all the law degrees and 9% of the medical degrees. And now it's about 50% of those degrees, which is a huge thing. Women are actually now have made a lot of gains with professors since Title IX. They've also really increased in the STEM fields in the United States, which is something that is very important. One thing that's really interesting was after the passage of Title IX is both sexes could take the courses that they wanted. And when I was talking about this with my students, they were really surprised about that. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, no, you either could take courses that were considered female courses or courses that were considered male courses. So what that means is that now students can be a plumber, a welder, courses that are considered typically male courses. And males, on the other hand, can sign up for nursing, teaching, or traditional female classes. That actually is something interesting close to home for me. My brother is a nurse, and even when he was getting his degree about 10 years ago, he was one of only 2 male students in the class. So even though we passed Title IX in 1972, there is still that discrepancy with the courses that people take. And I'll also talk a little bit about engineering and women and how that has changed a little bit. Also, another thing that's really interesting, talking for students, is that in sports, women now have the opportunity to participate in sports, and they get the same funding. So that was a big deal for a lot of female athletes. And also, I think that it's important for people to know that before Title IX, if you were on a female team, you didn't get the best practice hours. You didn't get, maybe you couldn't practice as much as other teams. You didn't get the good equipment. You didn't get the best locker rooms, and things have changed. It's not perfect, and there is still definitely work to be done, but it is something that is very important. And the last thing with Title IX that is very important, and I think important for everyone to know, is that if you get pregnant, it's not an automatic career ender. Prior to Title IX, if you got pregnant, you were kicked out of schools, and now things have changed, and your students are able to stay in school and continue with their education, which I think is very, very important. In the U.S., the other thing that I wanted to talk about, because I wanted to primarily focus on K through 12, is the percentage of public school principals. And I bring up these two separate sides because when we talk about women's roles in education, if you look at this and you look at the role of the females, right now you'll see that 56% most males and females, it's changed a little bit. There's way more females who are in the role of principalships, where in the past it wasn't as much. So you notice that there's a little bit of change from 2000 until 2018. And I think that's great in schools that you're seeing more school principals who are females. But one thing that we should know with education, sorry. Oh, I lost that. Okay. I don't know where it went. I don't know where the slide is, but there is the other thing that you should know is that in education right now, women are mostly take the roles of the teachers in the classrooms. So any school department that you go to, it's typically heavy with the female teachers, and it's actually there are. Here's my note. Sorry about that. I lost that slide. There's more females who are in the roles of teachers in schools right now, which is something that I think is very important for us to know, because we're still relying on women to take up the role of teachers in the classes, which would bring me here where it has changed is now 56% of college educated in the US workforce passed the share of college educated men. That's huge in the United States, because I think that's a direct result of Title IX, and that's a result of there's more opportunities for women right now to go to school and get school and participate. But what I did want to show you was that while women are making a lot of gains in education in the United States, I think what we have read is that the pandemic has had sort of a disproportionate impact on women's roles in education. If anyone notices, women typically take the roles in the homes as the caregiver to the children, regardless if they're working full time. And so there's been a lot of articles recently about how teachers, especially women teachers, are teaching, doing their schoolwork, doing their teaching, and they're also teaching their own children who are being homeschooled, and they're also maintaining the home. And so I think that there's a recent article in the New York Times that said it's actually pushing us 10 years back for women in education. And I think that's something that we need to pay attention to. I'm curious to see what the studies will find, because I think that for women in particular, we have made a lot of strides, but now because things are the way they are because of the pandemic, especially in the United States, what is going to happen with us in education? There are lots of studies where people are in the process of doing studies where they found that young women are actually leaving higher education because they can't afford it, or they have other roles that they need to do at home, and so they're not able to participate. I know that in my own experience with my own students, I've had a number of students this semester, female students, who have said to me, I've had to take a semester off because I can't continue going to school because I need to work. I need to take care of my family members. And that is something that I think is really, we need to pay attention to. We need to make sure that these students are able to come back to school, because I think it's very important. I also wanted to include this photo here. So I belong to this organization, Green Light for Girls.
Time is up. Time is up.
Oh, it is? Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Take the picture and let's go.
Okay. All right. I was just the last one. I just wanted to say that
Yes,
it's an
go ahead,
NGO
go
for it's just an NGO for STEM education for girls. And I've noticed that women in education have really been trying to become role models, as the first speaker mentioned. And so in STEM, particularly in the United States, there's a number of programs to keep girls interested in STEM. And so that'll end it there. Sorry, Jabbar.
That is all right. Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that perspective on that little bit of history of women in education in America. That was very nice. Thank you. So next up, we have Dr. Vera Endrasaj from the UK in Cardiff. Dr. Vera, are you ready?
Hello. Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much for inviting me. So it's a great pleasure to share some of the experience and also provide an overview of the woman's role in education in context of the UK perspective. So I have decided to take quite a different approach, since we have the flexibility not to produce or share the PowerPoint. So basically the philosophy or principles of my speech is that women's role in education is essential, since they constitute a major educating force in society. Therefore, improving opportunities for them in academia makes the world a better place. So their role in education is also essential for empowering the next generation to tackle gender inequality. The evidence observed for the purpose of this fantastic event shows that in the UK, opportunities for women in academia have been improved enormously. Does it sound a good news? Is it a good news? It is fantastic news, isn't it? Although, during my 10 years academic experience, I have noticed that some women have found their opportunities much improved. Other women have not. To illustrate that, I'm referring to a very interesting quote, at least on my view, the quote from Doppel. She has recently published on the woman equality in academia. And she specifically concludes that a brave new equal world is not on the horizon just yet. What universities do or don't do matters. So again, I thought I'm going to produce or provide some insightful evidence in regards to gender inequality among the UK academics. According to the Advanced Higher Education Report published in 2019, in 2018, 54.4% of staff working in UK higher education institutions were women and 45.6% were men. Again, great news, isn't it? Proportions of men and women were similar across the countries of the UK. However, between 2003 and 2018, the proportion of female staff working in UK higher education institutions increased from 52.4% to 54.4%. Over the same period of time, the proportion of male staff decreased from 47.6% to 45.6%. Now, another issue that women's working in academia face in UK is the mode of their role. In the context of the mode, the report indicates that 76.6% of male staff worked full-time compared to 59.7% of female staff. So again, this indicates that the figures show that the full-time mode for women is a lost opportunity somehow. Among both academic and professional and support staff, the majority of staff on part-time contracts were women. In context of the gender, again, despite comprising the majority of staff working in UK higher education institutions, women remain underrepresented among academic staff, staff in science subject areas and in senior management roles. A large proportion of women than men worked in professional and support roles, work part-time on fixed-term contracts and in lower salary bands. Gender pay gaps remain highest among academic staff in the UK. The proportion of female academic leavers was higher than proportion of male academic leavers. According to Bhopal 2002, in UK higher education, white women have been the main beneficiaries of equality policy making. They have gained positions as senior managers, professors, and vice chancellors. About 23.9% of professors are white women. Only 2.1% are Black and Asian minority ethnic women. There are 40 females vice chancellors, and only one is Black. This precedence of gender over race has resulted in a hierarchy of oppression in which white women's experiences are privileged above that the women and men of color. However, the higher education institutions in the UK, they have acknowledged the importance of equality between gender and race. So therefore, they are working very closely with the Athena Swan Charter, which has provided a framework which is used across the globe to support and transform gender equality within higher education and research. So as briefly stated above, another issue among the women in academia, particularly in UK, and I believe that in some degree in each of the countries they face the similarity issue, is pay gap. The median and mean gender pay gap for UK professors were 5.9 and 6.2 respectively. The gender pay gap was widest among professors in Northern Ireland. Across the UK, the gender pay gap was higher among non-professors. An overall median pay gap of 11.1% and a mean pay gap of 11.8%. Another issue stated from this particular report was the ethnicity. The UK staff that belong to the ethnicity groups in the UK is 9.8%. However, this proportion varies by country, ranging from 2.3% in Northern Ireland to 11.1% in England. The proportion of staff who identifies as Black, African, or Middle East was considerably higher among the non-UK staff, who to 29.4%. Again, this proportion varied by country, ranging from 12.5% in Northern Ireland to 33.4% in Wales. Overall, ethnicity was not known for 5.4% of UK staff and 8.8% for non-UK staff. So again, this is another issue that has been acknowledged, and there is evidence, convincing evidence, I would say, among the higher education institution to solve this problem, to find the solution. And as a result, they are working closely with the Advanced Higher Education Race Quality Charter, which again, this professional body provides a framework through which institutions work to identify and self-reflect on institutional and cultural barriers standing in the way of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic groups and students. So again, I would like to reinstate again the quote that Bhopal clearly sent the message out there. We still need to wait for an ideal world, for a brave new equal world, which has not yet appeared in the horizon. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I hope that I have managed to provide some insightful information.
That was very nice. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.
So I'm happy to answer any question that you may have.
Well, we do have a few questions that were raised in the chat that we probably should start with. The first was a comment by Dr. Diana Fox, who has left to go to class. But she was wondering, I thought something that was very important about the work that it takes to mentor women in higher education. I mean, all of our speakers have talked about the importance of including women in the sisterhood and mentoring women who are emerging leaders. But of course, this is more of the unpaid labor that women are often called to do. And I think what she's raising is the idea of institutionalizing in some way. You know, are there ways that our institutions can help to support the work that we do in mentoring emerging women leaders in higher education? So any of the speakers can speak to this.
Hi, Laura. Shall I try?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, yes, look, I think that's a very difficult and catch-22 situation because, you know, mentoring of each other is critical. And I think that, you know, you've seen with the All Boys Network how men have supported each other and how they sort of advance in their careers because of this. So one of the things in South Africa, particularly with post-apartheid and addressing issues of marginalization and exclusion, it's become part of the policy that they have specific funding allocated for mentorship programs and for progressing minority groups through the system. However, even with that, the money is not used to pay mentors. So I think, you know, I think that it's expected as part of your job. And I guess if it just becomes an additional performance management criteria as opposed to how can we pay for this work, which doesn't happen right now. And so it's possibly something to think about in thinking about when we plan for that kind of mentoring and when there is sort of money allocated to it, that part of it should be for the mentors in some way. So either reduction of other work, which never happens, or some kind of additional pay for the mentorship.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. So we should probably move on. Ayan had a question about how students can help with some of this work. Ayan, would you like to speak to that? To rephrase your question?
Oh, hi everyone. My name's Anne. It was just basically to ask about like what are other ways that we can improve academia within like other women of our major, or even just in conversation as well, because I think it's really important to kind of uplift each other and make sure that we're all I would say like afloat in academia.
Yeah, that's good, because students clearly are going to be playing a role in continuing to make this happen, right? You all are the next generation of leaders. And so, I mean, one thing that I have noticed is the way that all of our speakers have talked about their own experiences. And I think that would be one of the key things that we can all do, is be more open about what our experiences have been. For many of us, there have been difficulties of one sort or another based on our gender. And the idea of keeping that private, of not sharing that, I think that's from the past. Right? We don't have to be embarrassed or shamed about the difficulties that we have had. In fact, we've all overcome them. That's why we're here, right? And so anytime anyone shares any of their stories, I think that helps to encourage other people, other women to do the same. Do any of the speakers want to speak to that?
I just would like also to add that for Bridgewater State University, recognizing this need, so we have women, gender, and women studies and gender minor. So this is really a call for our students and also faculty probably to work with the minor and make sure that this conversation is going forward. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Good point. And then Lisa, you had a question in the chat about online education and Jordan.
Do you want me to ask it out loud? I had a question.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, please.
About Jordan. We noted that in Jordan, there is right now a feeling that online education is not really respected. And that happened in the United States as well, but there has been some change with the pandemic. As many of us are forced to do it, we do see that it's still rigorous and we learn a lot virtually, just like we're doing today. So I wondered if there was any hope in Jordan for an increase in regard for online education, and if that would help more women obtain doctorates in Jordan.
Okay, thank you for your question. What to be honest with you, hear from the news and the Ministry of Higher Education, they work so hard to review the regulations with regard to online reading, online degrees, because if you can imagine, before COVID-19, we never ever offer online courses, but since March, we teaching from home. We deliver our classes online. So what I understand, yes, they think about again review the regulations and start accepting the idea. It is about having online degree. And regarding if the female yes, if the female student like to do their PhD online, is it this your second question? Yes, I think plenty of the girls, they will go for it because I'm not sure if I mentioned this during my presentation with regard to the cultural issues. The majority of the girls, they are not allowed to travel by themselves. This is number one. Number two, if you think about it, if you would like to move, for example, from Jordan to the States to do the PhD, you are talking about plenty or large amount of costs. You're talking about accommodation, health insurance. So it is very easy and cheap to do it from home. So they just need to pay their fees, so that's it. So I think I think we're gonna see into 2021. I think we're gonna see a huge change with regard to the online programs and online degrees in Jordan. Thank you for your question.
Good. So it's 12:29. We do have time for one more quick question if someone has one. Okay, then I know it's 12:30 that people have to go to the next classes. Oh, but Butena, please, a comment?
Yes, I would like to ask Dr. Jabbar, what do you feel about this session? You are the only, I think you are the only, no, yes, I can tell, yeah, you are the only male academic staff. So
No, we have they left, but
really?
it's excellent. It's
I
excellent.
can see, I can see on my screen only male, only females, or only flowers. So what do you think?
This is a deliberate effort made by Laura and myself to invite distinguished speakers. So I think that speaks to the.
I think Dr. Hassan is with us as well.
We are thrilled to have you all, and I just would like to remind ourselves. There is a quote is really from United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. He said, "Removing the barriers that keep women and girls on the margins of economic, social, cultural, and political life must be a top priority for us all." So that's the United Nations Secretary General. Businesses, governments, the United Nations, and civil society. So all these should work in tact and harmony in order to what Sarah mentioned about empowering girls. I know she is working for years on this project for empowering girls. And this starts from a classroom. So we should not undermine our job as a teacher. You know, I know we have different ranks and levels. We teacher, and we start with the very basic in the preschool through elementary and middle school, and of course up to the universities, community colleges. We need to make sure that the conversation always there, and we should grab the attention and the ears of the political decision makers. Unfortunately, throughout the world, and we can have another session on this, the most of the decisions are made by men, and this is unacceptable. And we need to shift this culture, and in order to control our environment in terms of offering equal opportunities. Through my friend Laura, if Wankai is there, I would like him to take 2 minutes to give us the closing remarks, if you don't mind, Laura.
Oh, it's past 12:30, but I really wanted to, yeah, Laura, you muted. Go ahead. Okay. I guess on behalf of Bridgewater State University and Mina Institute for Global Engagement, and Dr. Jabbar organized this event and to really focus on gender issues in the world. And I think we've been trying to get educators from different parts of the world to share their experiences. The United States is so much self-centered in our approach to international education and foreign policy in the current administration. and we really think that, you know, this so-called America First ideology has hurt everything from international exchange and cultural exchange to opening our doors for international students and scholars. So especially in the virtual environment, we really wanted to have all voices heard and talk about pressing issues affecting international education. The United Nations, mentioned by Dr. Jabbar, and other organizations have been advocating for gender equality for a long time, and it's one of the Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals as well. I think we all need to look ourselves in the mirror in academia in terms of our hiring practices, in terms of our opportunities for admissions, and also to create equal opportunities for folks. And so again, I think, as I said on the chat, is gender studies is not just about women's rights and activism. Is everyone should participate in it to have better equity and gender equality in the world. So again, I think in some departments we're doing better in terms of the ratio. In some other departments we still have long ways to go. So if there are any barriers for any parts of the world for women's rights, we do a few programs connecting to that. Our Mandela Washington Fellows Program in Africa have always been talking about discrimination and oppression of women worldwide, especially in the African continent. Our Middle East and MENA program have also been trying to address these issues about some of the inequalities in other parts of the world. So we will continue to focus on some of these issues and collaborate with all colleges and departments in our university. And especially thank you all the participants from the UK and from South Africa and from Jordan for your insights and for your excellent presentations. We appreciate the international spirit of cooperation and learning from each other. Thank you, Dr. Jabbar, as well.
Thank you, Laura. So Laura, I just would like to invite all our participants, especially from speakers from UK, from Jordan, from South Africa, and also our participants from different countries. We are, this semester, we started actually early this summer, we are working with, about COIL. COIL is a collaborative online international learning. This is can connect individual faculty to individual faculty or institution to institution. So we really would like you to connect with us and see if we can make a difference and get some of, I always say, conversation forward when we need the engagement. So because in Bridgewater State University, especially after March, we made it an effort that we don't like anything we call it just window dressing. We don't want that. We're not going to brush the surface and say, okay, we have to dig down and dive into the real matters and then work together. So I invite all of our international collaborative teachers, educators, institutions to work with us. Again, thank you so very much. I'm personally honored to be part of this forum and this wonderful group, and I will send it back to my friend Laura to close it.
All right, well, thank you so much to all of our speakers, to all of our guests, our distinguished guests. This has been informative and inspirational, actually, right? To be able to see all of you and all the work that you're doing. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.